All right, let's talk about authorization inside Vault. I know, managing permissions can be a real headache, but this explainer is going to show you the simple, yet really powerful, model that makes it all just click. So let's dive in.
Okay, we have to start with the single most important principle of the entire Vault system, and honestly, it might feel a little backward at first. As you see here, Vault never assigns permissions directly to a user. This is the one thing you have to get, because understanding this one rule is the key that unlocks everything else.
So yeah, that naturally leads to the big question, right? If you don't give permissions to people directly, then how in the world does anyone get access to anything? Let's break down where those rights actually come from.
To answer that, we've got to look at the foundational pieces of the system. We'll start with the who and the what, the things that actually use Vault every day.
In Vault, there are basically two types of actors or accounts. First, you've got human users. That's you, me, logging in with our email, probably through SSO. Then you have service accounts. Think of these as automated identities for all your scripts and integrations, and they use API tokens to authenticate. But from Vault's perspective, they're both just accounts that need permission to do stuff.
Now, to keep all these accounts from becoming a total mess, we organize them into groups. A group is really just a named list of users and service accounts. You might create a marketing team group or a back-end engineers group. It's just a way of putting related accounts together.
And here's a super important point. A group on its own is just a container. It has zero power. The best way to think about it is like a key ring. It's the thing that holds all the people, but right now it doesn't actually have any keys on it. It can't open a single door.
So if our groups are just empty key rings, how do we get some keys on there so they can actually open doors? Well, this is where the real magic of Vault comes in. And it's with a little something called access tags.
This thing, the access tag, is really the heart and soul of the whole system. It's a security label that you attach directly to your data. And this one label defines everything. It says which groups can perform which actions, like read or modify, on that very specific piece of data.
In fact, they are the primary way you delegate rights in Vault. So if the group is the key ring, the access tag is the actual key. It specifies exactly who can open that door and what they're allowed to do once they're inside.
And this right here, this is the simple, powerful chain of logic it creates. Users are in groups, groups get their rights from access tags, and those access tags are attached to the data items. Just remember that flow, because we're about to see exactly how it works.
All right, we've got all our pieces on the board: accounts, groups, and tags. So now, let's put it all together and walk through the exact process Vault uses to decide yes or no when you try to do something.
The very first thing Vault checks is something called path-based visibility. Think of it like this. Before you can open a specific office door, you first need permission to even be in the hallway that leads to it. You have to have at least read access on every single item in the path down to your target. If any folder along the way is hidden from you, you're stopped right there. Game over.
Okay, so once Vault confirms you're allowed in the hallway, it then checks rule number 2. Do you have the right key? It looks at the access tags on the item itself and asks, does this user, or any group they belong to, have the specific permission they're asking for, like modify, from at least one of these tags? So let's just trace that whole flow from start to finish. You make a request, Vault looks at you, finds your groups. It then figures out all the rights those groups get from all their access tags. Then it looks at the item you want and its tags. You get access only if both conditions are met. The path is visible and you have the right tag permission. It has to be both.
Okay, that makes sense for accessing data. But wait a minute. Who gets to create the groups in the first place? Who manages these access tags? Well, that requires a completely different kind of permission.
And this is a really critical distinction to make. Access tags are for using Vault, reading and writing data. That's like having the key to a specific room. But roles are for managing Vault, controlling the users, groups, and tags themselves. That's like being the building manager who gets to decide who gets which keys.
These administrative powers come from roles, and you can get really flexible here. You can have a broad, powerful role, like group.admin, to manage all groups. Or you can get incredibly specific and create a role that can only manage one single group, or even just one single access tag. This is how you can safely delegate responsibility without giving away the keys to the whole kingdom.
So let's make this real. Imagine an admin creates a sales_team group and a sales_data tag. Then they create a custom sales manager role, and this role only has permission to manage that one group and that one tag. What does that mean? It means the sales manager is now empowered. They can add new salespeople to their team and manage their data access all by themselves without ever having to file a ticket with the main administrator. It's a game changer.
All right, let's wrap this all up. If you remember nothing else, remember these key points. Rights are never direct. Accounts, both human and service, go into groups. Groups get their power from access tags. Those access tags live on the data items. And finally, roles are what give you permission to manage the whole system. That's the entire model right there.
You see, by understanding this flexible model, you're not just learning a system, you're gaining the power to design a secure, scalable, and genuinely easy-to-manage permission structure for your entire organization. So the only question left is, now that you have the keys, what are you going to build?